Hi folks, this is Karim Rao from IT Visualizer channel. Today we will continue our lab, the DC Comics. This is the third video. We have been discussing in the previous two videos our new lab scenario, which is as the following. Here just a minute. Here we can see that our lab storyline we have been discussing in the previous two videos, that this is the DC Comics universe and they need to build a new headquarters, and they have assigned Superman to be the project manager and to be the one responsible for constructing this new headquarters. And Superman was assigned a task to build this headquarters with all of its infrastructure, from building and IT infrastructure as well. So as we all know that our IT hero or IT superhero, or the one who is the geek tech of all of the DC Comics heroes, is Batman. So Batman was asked by his friend Superman to be responsible for the information technology part in this project, and to construct a new domain called DC-domain.local, and to deploy 53 PCs for all of the DC Comics characters. We have 215 characters. We need to deploy 53 PC for all of them, and he was also assigned 53 robots to help him to construct and to deploy his the 53 computers. Okay, so Batman was Superman asked Batman to finish the job, or to finish the IT infrastructure in 2 days. So Batman, to accelerate or to speed the process of constructing the domain controller and to construct the domain, which is called DC-domain.local, he will use PowerShell scripts, and for deploying the 53 PCs he will use the WDS and MDT feature to deploy PCs as soon as possible. What is the WDS? As I said before, WDS it's Windows Deployment Server, and MDT is Microsoft Deployment Tool. So Batman, by using these two features, he will deploy the 53 PCs very quickly and without any a great effort, because he is the only one charged for the IT, and he doesn't have anyone to help him. So I will use the WDS and MDT to make installation or to deploy 53 PCs in a process which is known as zero Windows or zero touch installation for Windows. Okay, this process, by what I mean by zero touch installation for Windows and all of its accessories like Office and Adobe and all of the necessary programs. What I mean by that, Batman will, as our scenario will apply, or as our scenario will imply, he will just put the 53 PCs in the power, and then, or give it a power source, and then he will power on the 53 PCs, and as soon as he power on the 53 PCs, they will go and communicate with the Windows Deployment Server, and then the installation of the Windows and all of the necessary programs will be done automatically, and the PCs are given their names also automatically, and they will join the domain automatically. All of this will be done with zero touch installation, which means that only Batman, he will power on the PC, and he will not intervene, or he will not interact with the installation and configuration process of the Windows and the installation of the additional software like Office and Adobe and etc. And also with naming the PCs, he will not also intervene with this, and at the end he will also not intervene with making these PCs join the domain. So this is our first video. The second video we have been discussing how this will be done. We have a scenario that we need to make two domain controllers, with which each domain controller will have two network cards, and there will be a teaming options between them. So this is for network redundancy. What I mean by network redundancy, that as soon as we make network teaming between two network cards, if one of them fails to start or fail to fail to or was corrupted or was whatsoever, the other network card will be working and the network connection will not be down. Okay, so in the previous video I have been discussing how we will create a virtual machine and make it as a domain controller. Our hypervisor, or the program that we will use to create these virtual machines, is the Hyper-V software. Okay, it's in the previous video we have discussed how we can install the Hyper-V, what are the Hyper-V switches type, how we can create a virtual machine, how we can name a virtual machine, how we can configure the virtual machine to give it the specific, or how we can give this virtual machine a specific RAM amount. For example, we have give this virtual machine, which will be a domain controller, 2 GB of RAM, and how we can after doing this, how we after that power it on and then begin the process of the installation of the Windows and do all of the necessary configuration. At the end of the lab, we have been or what we have finished with this virtual machine. We have already named it or named the PC DC01. We have named the virtual machine, and then we have configure, or we have add 2 network cards, and we have already established the teaming option between them, and we have enabled some configuration, or we have enabled some options, and we have enabled some options in this Windows, for example, to enable remote access and so and some options. Please refer to my previous video to know what we have done. But as a general view of what we have done, here we can see that this is let me first show you the name of my laptop. My laptop name, here it is named desktop TLMH1QH. okay, this is the name of my laptop. Here I have my Hyper-V program installed. I have installed Hyper-V on this laptop. Okay, and this is the name of my laptop, and through the Hyper-V program I have created my virtual machine. So let's have a look, or a general look. Here is my laptop name. This is the Hyper-V host. My laptop will be named as a host. Okay, in the Hyper-V environment, hosts mean the physical machine, or the machine that you have Hyper-V program installed on it. So this is my laptop. Okay, it is the network card of my laptop. Okay, after installing the Hyper-V and creating a Hyper-V internal switch, this is a virtual switch. After installing the Hyper-V program, and I told him to create an Hyper-V internal switch, which is a virtual switch. In the previous video we have been discussing what is an internal switch. An internal switch, it is a type of Hyper-V switches. It is a virtual switch. It is created by the Hyper-V software, so you can you can, when you create virtual machines, you will connect them to this virtual switch so they can be able to communicate with each other. For example, here we can see that it is a virtual network card which is attached to a virtual machine. Okay, and this network card that is attached to a virtual machine, it is attached to a virtual port. Okay, so here, for example, this is another virtual adapter, and this is another virtual adapter, and this is another virtual adapter, which means every network card will be attached, or every virtual network card will be attached to a virtual machine. So here we can say that we have 4 virtual machines, and this is virtual ports connected to 4 virtual ports on this virtual switch, which is an internal virtual switch. We have discussed before that an internal virtual switch, it is a switch created by the Hyper-V, so it can enable virtual machines to communicate with each other and to communicate with the host or with my laptop, which is this name, through another virtual adapter card which is called OS Network Virtual Adapter. Okay, this card, after creating or after installing the Hyper-V program, and I told him to create a virtual internal switch, or Hyper-V internal switch, it had created a virtual network adapter for my laptop. Okay, and I give it already an IP address. Why we have created a virtual adapter for my laptop? So I can be able to communicate with the other virtual machines. So let's consider that this is my laptop and I have a network card in it, and then this network card through this network card I have put a virtual cable, okay, and created to this virtual port. So basically so I can communicate as a host with my virtual machines, which are called guests. Okay, so here we can see that this is my desktop virtual adapter. Okay, this is only, or it is attached to my laptop. This is only for my laptop, so I can able to communicate with the other virtual machines. Okay, and also the virtual machines are on the same switch, so I can be able as a laptop or as a host to communicate with the guest. I need to have a virtual adapter, okay, for my host, and I had to put an IP address in the same range of my virtual machines, same network range of my virtual machines, so I can be able to communicate with them. Okay, so here my example, my domain controller will be 10.0.1.20. This will be the range, network range, and also my laptop or virtual network adapter for my laptop or my host should be in the same range. Okay, so this is in brief, or this in general, our structure or our Hyper-V structure. In this lab, or in our beginning of this lab, we will go, and I didn't put still in the last lab, I have already created the domain controller and I have done network teaming, but I didn't put an IP address or didn't give an IP address for this domain controller. So here we will begin the second lab to give this domain controller an IP address. But before that, we will do something else. First of all, I need to show you all. I will open in the start and then control panel. This is my laptop, and then network, sharing and center. Okay, and here we can see that there is a connection. This is my host, which is desktop. I can see all this is my host. Now I am working with my laptop, which its name is like this. Just a minute. Oh, this is my laptop. Here now I am opening my laptop here. Okay, in the video I am opening my laptop configuration. I am not working with the Hyper-V or working with my virtual machines. I am working on my laptop, the one that is hosting the Hyper-V program and all the virtual machines. Okay, so here what I am doing, I will open, just a minute. Here we can see that I have opened my laptop. Okay, start, then control panel, and then I have a connection called DC internal switch. As I said before, in my diagram, you need to have a virtual network card. Okay, and there is an IP address on it, so you can be able from this network card to communicate with the other virtual machines. So my laptop or my host need to have a virtual adapter and an IP address in the same range of the virtual machines, so I can be able to communicate with them. So what I did, I have opened my laptop and go to the virtual adapter configuration of this virtual adapter for my laptop host. Okay, and then I put an IP address of 10.0.1.100, so I can be able to communicate with the domain controller or the other 4 virtual machines. Okay, so here we can see that this connection, this is the virtual adapter for my host. Okay, it's named DC internal switch. This is the virtual network adapter that I will use to communicate with the other virtual machines in my Hyper-V environment. Okay, so this is the virtual network card. I will go to the setting for this virtual network card, and then I will put an IP address in the same range of the other virtual machines, which is 10.0.1. whatsoever. Okay, it's 10.0.1.100. Then I will open the virtual machine. I tell him to connect. Okay, we can pass this real quickly. Here we need to make sure that the network adapters for the domain controller are on the same internal switch that my host is on it. If you remember from the previous video, I have created a switch which is called internal switch, DC internal switch. Its type we can see from here. In the previous video we have created a Hyper-V internal switch and we have named it DC internal switch. My host and my virtual machines are connected to this internal switch, so we need to make sure that the virtual machines are connected to the internal switch and my laptop or my host or my guest is connected to the internal switch the same as my host. Okay, here I'm just making sure that I am connected to this internal switch. Now we can pass this real quickly. You can go there and then we will power on the virtual machine and then we will control alt delete. This is an icon that simulates the clicking or pressing of control alt delete. Okay, now we will put the password and then we will go and give this virtual machine an IP address before installing the Active Directory and promoting this server or virtual machine to a domain controller. I think we can go more faster than this. Okay. So now we open the control panel and then we will open Network and Sharing Center. So here let me see, have a look. After making two network cards in one team, or after configuring the two network adapters for this server or for this virtual machine to be acting as one, or after teaming the two network cards, they will be put in one connection, okay, which is called DC team. This is the name of the teaming, or this is the name of the network connection that contains both network cards as one team or acting as one network card. In other words, the two network cards will act as one and they will appear in the network and sharing center as one network connection. Okay, so in this connection we will open it and then put our IP address. Properties, and then we'll go to the network protocol, and then we will put our IP address will be 1.20. okay, 1.20. so our server will be 10.0.1.20 and my host will have 10.0.1.100. so I can be able as a host to communicate with this virtual machine which is named as the guest, which is IP address is 10.0.1.20. so now we will open here. I'm just make sure that I can ping my host, okay, or my laptop 10.0.0.1.100. here there is something I can't ping my host, although I can after a couple of seconds we can see that I can share documents between them, but for some reason I can't ping it, but I can share documents with it. So I'm just here revising my connection, my laptop. I am going here to my laptop network connections for the DC internal switch. This is my virtual network card for my host. I can see that I am having 10.0.1.100. so here I'm trying to ping it, but anyway it failed for some reason. I think maybe because I have my firewall enabled, but anyway I I have just passed this point for a couple of minutes, and I began configuring or begin installing the Active Directory server role, okay, or begin the Active Directory feature, and begin to prepare this virtual machine to be a domain controller, after of course configuring the Active Directory, or after installation of the Active Directory feature. So here I will open the server manager, and then I will open the manage. Okay, we can go to the local server and revise what we have done with this virtual machine. I think it's a little bit not fast. We can just go a little bit quickly. No, just a minute again. No, we can go back. Anyway, we will now, what I did, that I have already go to the manage. I think I have passed quickly a lot of things. Here what we have done, that we have gone to the manage, and then we choose, just a minute, let's see, because I actually have passed it real quickly. Here what I have done, I have told him to go to the manage, and then from the manage I tell him to add server role, and then I choose to install the Active Directory domain services. Okay, this is also passed real quickly, but it's known. If you need to install the Active Directory, you need to open manage and then add server role or feature, and then choose to install the Active Directory, or choose or check checkbox that contains Active Directory domain services, and then this is said that you already finished installation of the Active Directory domain services. You need now to promote this server to a domain controller. So in this step we will begin configuring our domain setting. We will name the domain name, what will be our domain name, what is the different configuration setting for the DNS and other things. So let's begin. We will click promote this server to a domain controller. Here we will name our domain dc domain.local. Here we have we will create a new forest. Okay, we need to tell him to add a new forest. If you are creating this domain for the first time, you need to choose the third option, which is add a new forest, and we will name it BCDM, I think. Just a minute. Okay, and then we tell him DC. As for abbreviation, I will not name it DC domain.local. I will name it DC as abbreviation for DC Comics, and DM it's an abbreviation for domain. So we name it DCDM.local. Okay, so this will be the name of our DC Comics domain. It will be DCDM.local. If you are creating the domain for the first time, you need to choose the third option, which is add a new forest, and then we will put the name of the domain, which will be DC, abbreviation of DC Comics, and DM is an abbreviation for domain.local, and then next. Here we'll give this an option says type the Active Directory our type of directory service restore mode. This is something like the safe mode in Windows. If something happened to the active directory, there is a mode like the safe mode, and you have to access this mode. You are given a password and username. So let's have a scenario. If there is a problem happened to the active directory, you will access something like the safe mode in Windows, and when you go to this safe mode, you will be given a username and a password. You will use them, which is this password. It's called DSRM password. This password will be used in the safe mode, so you can go and repair the active directory if something happened to the active directory, or restore something for the active directory. Okay, so this is called directory service restore mode. This password is used if there is a problem with the active directory. We'll use this password to repair or to restore anything, or anything happened to the active directory. Okay, so here we will continue. Here we have an option, just a minute. Here also an option say that this domain controller will be a DNS. Okay, it also, you can make your DNS, so you make your domain controller a DNS, or you can install the DNS on a separate server, but it's preferred that when you have a domain controller, that in the same time it should be a DNS, and also it should have a feature like something called global catalog. Okay, this is something like a telephone book. You know, if your telephone book contains all the names and numbers of all of the people in the whole world, or for a country, for example. So if you have multiple domain controllers, so one of them should be a global catalog, okay, that contains all of the other domain controllers. As for example, if you have 3 or 4 domain controllers, all of this have a lot of users and a lot of computers, and so one of these domain controllers will have the global catalog, or the telephone book that contains or that archives or that lists all of what is in all of the other domain controllers, from computer objects, user objects, and so when you set up a domain controller, you can also choose the option to be a DNS, which is preferred, and also you can choose it to be a global catalog. Also this should be also checked. Okay, so now here we will complete, and then he will ask you about the NetBIOS name. This is something like a short list, not short list, a short name for the domain. Okay, for example, sometimes we have a long name. My name, for example, is Karim Raouf Abdekrim whatsoever. So sometimes you have a brief name, Kuku, for example, or something like a short name. So the NetBIOS domain name is something like a short name for the domain. Our full domain name, it's called dcdm.local, but our short name for our domain, it will be dcdm. Okay, so now here this option tells us that, and as we said before, that the Active Directory uses a database, okay, to put all of its data in it. And we said before, the Active Directory records in this database all what concerns the Active Directory. For example, it will record how many users objects it has, how many computer objects it have, how many groups it have, which user have accessed the computer in which time. All of this are recorded in a database, okay, which is Windows internal database, and this database file, okay, will be in a database folder named cwindows_ntds, and also in the same folder it contains a log for the Active Directory. This log, I said before, it's a text file. It's something like a logbook that the Active Directory records all what happens in it in this log file. So for example, if there is an error that happens in the Active Directory, it will be recorded in the log file. Where is this log file? It will be in this location. So this location contains NTDS, will contain the database for the Active Directory. As I said before, this is a database where the Active Directory records all of its activity, computers, object, user objects, which user have acted, which have access which folder in the domain, and so all of this are recorded in a Windows internal database, and the database file or the database location will be in this folder. And also a log file. We have seen this log file, and I said before, the log file is something like troubleshooting log. This log file contains all of the things that the Active Directory have done, and all of the errors or something. All of this can be recorded in this log file in this location. And also the there is another folder called sysvol folder. Sysvol folder, this contains the location of the group, the scripts, okay, that the Active Directory will use, and the group policies as well, as we'll see in a couple of seconds. We can have this sysvol. This contains the scripts that will be used in the domain, and also we will put our group policy or group policy objects will be in this folder. Don't worry, we'll do this in a couple of seconds, but tell them to next. You can go there here for a couple of seconds. Here, this is a review of what we have done in the previous steps. This is a summary of what options that you have chosen and what is the configuration that you have typed, the name of the domain, the location of the log files, the location of the database, the password that we have put for the directory service remote, the directory service restore management or directory restore password, and a lot of things that we have done in the previous, all of what done in the previous steps are there here in a summary. And there is something called the script. This can be all of what we have done until now can be exported in a PowerShell script. So if you want to automate the process, you don't need to type it again, or you are repeating the same process for another server, another domain controller with the same setting or the same configuration. You can get view script and copy this script and then open a PowerShell window and begin implementing this script without the need for doing this again and again, especially if you are doing it for multiple domain controllers with the same configuration, just to save time. So we now wait until the Active Directory or promoting this server to be a domain controller. Okay, actually we have done already installed the Active Directory services, and now we are in the process of promoting this server to be a domain controller, and we have done this, and now we'll make a restart, and then now we have our server as a domain as a domain controller. So now as we can see that here is our domain, and this is the administrator account. Then we'll make it as full screen. So now the first thing to do after installing the Active Directory services and promoting the server to be a domain controller is to have or to make a console or a window that we will in this window we will collect all of the things that we need to configure on this server in one place. So I am making a window, let's say name this window as a console, and this console I will put all of the things I need to access or to configure this server, okay, through this console. Okay, so I will see that now in a moment. For example, I need, after promoting this to this server to be a domain controller, I need to configure the DNS, to configure the Active Directory, to configure the group policy. All of this I don't need every time to open the start and then administrate and then control panel and then administrative tools and then begin working one by one or program by program. Okay, not program by program, feature by feature. So I need to open start and then control panel and then administrative tool and then open the DNS console, and then after that, if I need to configure the Active Directory, I need again to open start and then control panel and then administrative tools and then Active Directory users and computers. We don't need to do all of this. Actually, we will have a new console, and at this console I will add the DNS console, the Active Directory console, the DHCP console. All of the consoles I need will be collected in one centralized console. We will see that now in a moment. This is to ease the access and configuration process for this domain controller. Okay, so here we'll right click and run. This is a trick I have learned during my production or during my work. We will right click and start, right click and run, and then we will type mmc. So here now we will tell him file and then add and remove snap in. Here we will have all what we need to configure on this server, or all the consoles we need to configure this server. Here we will add the Active Directory users and computers console, and then we will add the computer management console. This is when I need to check if there is something with my device, something with the local users and group for this server. And here I will add the DNS also console, so I can configure the DNS. And then we will add the event viewer also, so if anything happens to this server, I don't have to go to start, then control panel, then administrative tools, then event viewer. I will add the event viewer to my console or my custom console, so I also, if there is something with the server, I don't need to go far. I will go, or I will have it in the same console. Here I will add it, and then we will add the group policy. So as we see, we are adding all what we need to configure for this domain controller in one custom console, because every one of these are in a separate console. You need to have them as a shortcut, or you need to go to start, control panel, then administrative tools, and then opening it. So what I am doing, that I am adding all of these consoles or programs in one place, so I can access them easily. Okay, so here we have added services, group policy, and wins. Okay, also I forgot to say that when we were installing the Active Directory domain services, we have also choose to also install the wins server role. Okay, so here now we have all of what we need. The first thing to do after configuring or promoting the server to be a domain controller, after installing the Active Directory services, we need to make or configure a reverse DNS zone. What is a reverse DNS zone? First of all, the DNS, it's as we all know that every computer should have a unique name. Okay, a unique number, so it can be able to communicate with each other. For example, if you have 4 or 3 servers, or for example 20 computers and 20 servers, so for every server to talk to the other servers or other workstations, it should have a unique number. Okay, so another thing, having a unique number, okay, you can communicate with numbers, but as for human, or as for the human mind, it's easy to remember names on remembering numbers. For example, if I need to talk to server 1 which have an IP, for example 10.0.0.20, I need to talk to server 8, for example, I need to know the number. So remembering the number or the IP of the server 8, it's much harder to remember. But if I am using names, this will be easy. Okay, for example, if server 1, its IP address is 10.0.0.20 and I have named it, for example, DC01, then I can easily remember DC01. This is easy for me to remember. And for example, if server 8 I give it a name DC08, I can remember the name easily. And for example, DC08 I will have an IP 10.0.0.28, for example. So the main function of DNS is to put the name or to resolve the name of the server to an IP address. For example, if I need server 1 to talk to server 8, so what I do, I will just type the name of server 8, which will be DC08, so I can go and communicate directly with the name. But in the background, the DNS, when I type the name of the server DC08, it goes to the DNS and see, okay, DC08, what is the IP address of this server? So it's recorded DC08, its IP is 10.0.0.28. So the main function of DNS is to resolve the names of the servers to IP addresses, okay, so they can be able to communicate with each other. Why we don't communicate directly with IP addresses and not with names? Because as I said before, it's very difficult to remember IPs, but it is very easy to remember names. So this is the main function of DNS. So after we configure Active Directory services and then promote the server to be a domain controller, the first thing we will do is to configure a reverse DNS. What is a reverse DNS? As I said before, the DNS resolves the name to an IP address. So I give him the name of the server and he will give me the IP of the server, so I can be able to communicate with it. Reverse DNS zone, it is the opposite. Okay, I give him the IP address and he give me the name. Okay, this is a reverse, what is called the reverse DNS zone. Some says that it is not important to configure reverse DNS zone in a domain environment, but it's still used until now. So what we will do after that, and it is very important, so what we will do now, after configuring the Active Directory and promoting the server to be a domain controller, we will, and actually this domain controller contains DNS, we will go to the DNS and create a reverse DNS zone, which is the opposite of the DNS. The DNS resolve names to IPs. The reverse resolves IPs to names. Okay, the opposite, the one-way opposite. Okay, so here we will right click the DNS and then tell him reverse lookup zone, right click and then new zone, then next, and then him primary zone. We leave everything as is. Okay, next, all of this. Here he's telling me what is your network range. As I said before, here we will resolve the IP to a name. So here he's telling me what is your network range or what is your network ID. For example, as I said before, my domain controller IP will be 10.0.1.20. This is the IP that we have give this server, or we have put it on the network card on this server. So the network ID will be the first three numbers, which is 10.0.1. Okay, because this is a class C IP address. So the network range will be 10.0.1. Okay, we need to give him the range, or not the range, the ID, network ID, or the network range that you are working in. Not the range, I mean with the IP addresses. No, the range is the network ID, or what are the network ID, how we can define this network by this network ID, which are the first three parts of the IP address, with 10.0.1, because this is the class C IP address. Next and then finish. Okay, I think I don't need to add DNS for this one. Can pass this real quickly. and this is the wins. Okay, we are just checking it's working or not. Here is our Active Directory. So now we'll begin working with, or we will use our PowerShell scripts. First of all, we will save our console. This is our custom console. We'll give it a name, and then after saving the console, we will begin working with PowerShell scripts to begin creating the DC Comics Active Directory users and computers and groups. Okay, Active Directory groups. So here now we have saved the console. First of all, we need to have the scripts moved or copied from my laptop or from my host to this virtual machine. Okay, so here arises a problem. Here I can't communicate with my laptop or with my host. My guest, which is the virtual machine, is not able to communicate with my host, which is the laptop, directly. Okay, first of all, we need to do something here. What I have done, that I have go to C Windows, and then this is policy definitions. This is the folder that contains all of the group policy objects for this domain. As I said before, there is an option called Active Directory Central Group Policy Location. What is this? This is a central place that we will create in the sysvol folder. Okay, remember this vol folder is the place where we put all of our Active Directory scripts, and our Active Directory scripts to be configured in the Active Directory domain. So we will copy this group policy and put it in the sysvol folder, which will be named as Active Directory, or this process is called creating an Active Directory Central Group Policy Location. Okay, why are doing this? Because to have a central location, it is much better than to have a central group policy location is much better than to have it in this place. For example, if we have 5 or 6 domain controllers and all of them are having different operating system. For example, I have one domain controller that have Windows Server 2008, and another domain controller that has Windows Server 2012, and another server that will have Windows Server 2016, and another server that will have Windows Server 2019. Their group policies, every one of them, or every one of these servers that have different operating system and all are acting as domain controllers, they will implement their group policy from this location, C Windows Policy Definitions. So as due to the different operating systems, the group policies in each domain controller is different than the other one. For example, Windows Server 2008 group policy objects are different than the Windows Server 2012 group policy objects, and also the Windows Server 2012 group policy objects are different from the Windows Server 2016 group policy objects. Okay, and the same apply to the Windows Server 2019. So every domain controller will go to this location and implement his internal group policy or his group policy object in this location. So as due to different operating system and different group policy objects versions, so this will make a mess. So what we will do, we will make a central location. For example, we have 4 domain controllers, and the latest one or the latest operating system installed, that a domain controller is installed on it, it will be Windows Server 2019. So what we will do, we will create a central location in this server. Okay, and we will have a copy of the latest group policy objects, which will be also from this server, Windows Server 2019, and then we'll put it in the central location on the server, and we will tell all of our other domain controllers with other operating system to communicate or to get their group policy from the Windows Server 2019 server. Okay, this will make the group policies unique and unified on all of the domain controllers. Okay, because as I said, sometimes Windows Server 2008 doesn't have all of the group policy object, or their group policy object is old, and Windows Server 2012 their group policy objects are newer, but Windows Server 2016 their group policy are newer and newer. Okay, and the latest group policy objects is on Windows Server 2019. So as not to make a mess on which group policy to implement and which group policy is the latest one and which group policy will be implemented, we will take the latest group policy from the latest operating system, and then we will create a folder on this latest operating system and tell all of the other domain controllers to communicate to get their latest group policy from this server. We can have it as something like here, much better. We can here, for example, have it like this. Okay, and we have like this. Okay, we have like this, and we have like this. Okay, for example, we have here another server. Okay, here we have server 2008, and then we have server 2012, and then server 2016, server 2003, and here we have server 2019. Here we will have in this server something called Active Directory, Central Group Policy Location. Here it will be in the sysvol folder. Okay, here is the, let's say here is the GPO, the GPO location will be at c-windows policy definition. Let's here have, he'll have it like this. So here let's have, for example, here this is a domain controller, and this is a domain controller, this is a domain controller, this is a domain controller. Every one of them has a group policy. Okay, GPO, and then GPO, and GPO, and GPO. Okay, so the group policy for Windows Server 2008, it will be in this location. The group policy for Windows Server 2019 will be in this location. All of them will be in the same location. Okay, is all of these group policies are the same, or they contain the same group policies, or the same number and the same options and the same configuration? No, they differ as the operating system differ. Okay, so if we let every one of these domain controllers with different operating system to implement its own group policy, then we will have a big or a huge or a mess difference. Okay, because every one of them has a different group policy. Okay, and these group policies are old. Okay, so to make all of these domain controllers work with one group policy and to be the latest group policy, so we'll go to the Windows Server 2019, which is a domain controller, and it contains a group policy in this location. We'll take a copy of its group policy and put it in a central location in the sysvol folder, and then we'll tell all of the servers here to connect to this server like this. Here we can see, okay, here we can go there and go there and go there, okay, and go there. Okay, so here if you want, we will not use, every server will not use its own group policy which is in this location. No, it will use the group policy of Windows Server 2019, which also will not be in the default location. We will copy it from this location and put it in the sysvol. So all of these domain controllers will use one group policy in one location, and this group policy is the latest group policy. There will not be differences between the group policy versions and the operating system versions. It will be the latest group policy with the latest operating system. Okay, so why we do this? As I said before, for unification of the group policy, and this also if you have multiple domain controllers, this will ease the syncing process. Okay, this is also it is said in a in a document that says this. I have read it in an article. Okay, but I can show you all here what we mean by, or what is the benefits of Active Directory Central Group Policy Location. Benefits. Okay, we can see here it's giving us some benefits here. First of all, ensure all admins are using the same group policy template. As I said before, here I am unifying the group policy templates because the group policy templates differ from one system to another. Sometimes this is group policy, it's older than 2012, and 2012 group policy is older than 2016, and 2003 is older than all of them. So we need to use the latest group policy template. So this is one option, or this is one benefit. Okay, it's use the same group policy template, load the same templates from any computer. Okay, and this is a centralized location. The same group policy template will be used, and the same group policy template will be implied to any computer. Make it easier to manage and update templates by having one location to update. Okay, this is also, for example, if you need to change, this is also another thing. For example, if there is a problem with one of the group policies, here we can go to this. If for example there is a problem with the group policy in 2008, you need to go to 2008 group policy objects and go to this location and change the group policy. Or if it is there is a problem with the group policy in 2012, you need to go to the server of 2012 and change the group policy there. If there is a problem with the group policy in 2016, you will go to the group policy of 2016 and change it. Okay, so you will change it in every server its group policy. But if you have it only in one place, if you need to update or change, it will be changed in one location and will be reflected to all of the servers at once. So you don't need to edit every group policy for every server. Okay, so this is another thing. Okay, so here we can see that reduce, this is all of the three benefits. Reduce templates files in the sysvol. As I said before, we will put our Active Directory group policy location, we will put it in the sysvol. For this, reduce templates in the sysvol and reduce replication traffic between domain controllers. As I said before, if you have more than one domain controller, there will be a replication between these domain controllers to make sure that they are typical, because they will have the typical configuration with each other, because they are two domain controllers, or having more than one domain controller to have redundancy. So if one domain controller is down, the other domain controller will be working. So to make this solution work perfectly, you need to have typical configuration on every domain controller. So all the domain controllers should have the same configuration and the same data. So this is done through replication. So what is said, it reduce template files in the sysvol and reduce replication between domain controllers. So if you reduce replication between domain controllers, this will reduce the traffic and reduce the time these domain controllers will be typical. Okay, so this is the three benefits. So this what we are doing with the what we are doing. So now what we will do, we will go and copy this folder. Okay, and then we will go to this vol. run, and then we'll go to dcm.local. So we'll copy the Windows Server 2019 group policy objects or files and put it in the dcm sysvol folder. Okay, so this will be our central group policy location. This is the location where all of the domain controllers will get their group policy from. So here we'll copy and paste. You can make it a little bit faster, so now we can finish. We have finished copy, and then we'll go to the advanced setting. I think I am doing something else. Here I am increasing the virtual RAM for this domain controller. What I mean by virtual RAM, it is something like adding, for example, I give this server 2 GB of RAM. Okay, so what happens if this RAM is full or it is completely used? Remember that when we were configuring this virtual machine, we have choose an option called dynamic memory allocation. So what does this mean? So when the RAM is full, completely full, and there is still available memory from my host or from my laptop, it will take what it needs from the rest of the available memory from the host. But what if I don't have any available memory from my host? So what I will do here, I will take a part of this virtual machine hard disk and make it to act as a RAM. Okay, this will help this virtual machine if its RAM it's finished or it's completely consumed. Here I am taking a part of this virtual machine hard disk and making it to act as a RAM. So this is the main function of a virtual RAM or virtual memory. So here we will go to advanced setting. Of course, when you take something or a part of the hard disk to be acting and as a RAM, it will not to be as fast as a real RAM, but this will help you. So here I'll give him to change virtual memory, and then I will change the automatic here, and then on the C drive I will tell him to take a virtual RAM of 5,000 megabytes to 7,000 megabytes, 5 gigabyte to 7 gigabyte. So here I am having a virtual RAM of 7 gigabyte. Actually the virtual RAM should be double the physical RAM. For example, if you are giving this virtual machine 2 gigabyte of RAM, so you need to have a virtual memory of 4, but here I'm giving it 7 more, and it's more. Okay, so now here we go to another problem, that I need to copy some of my scripts from my host or my laptop to my virtual machine. So here I am trying to communicate with my virtual machine. Here is the folder that contain my scripts that I will use. I will copy, and then I will try to paste it directly, but it failed. Okay, let's see how this will work. No, I think it's working. Okay, anyway, I will have a problem. I will show you in a couple of seconds what I mean by this. No, as we can see here that I copied from my laptop or my host to my guest. It didn't paste. It pasted another completely different thing. So here I go to the network. I try to see if I can communicate with my host. As you know, I have given my host an IP from the same range of this virtual machine. But here, as we can see, that it's not copying. Still I am trying to copy it, but it will not work. So here is the trick. If you need to communicate between your host and your guest, or with your laptop and your virtual machine, you need to create a folder and then share it, okay, between your make a share or share this folder between your laptop or with your host and with your guest. A little bit of old way, or it's not there in if you are using VM Workstation Pro. This is not done. Actually, when you create a virtual machine in VM Workstation Pro, you just tell him in the setting or the configuration that I need to have a folder shared between my host and my guest, and this is done when you create the virtual machine. It's done automatically, and once you create the virtual machine and log in to the virtual machine, you can see a shared folder appearing automatically as a mapped drive. This is completely easy. But as for the Hyper-V, it's a little bit not easy. You need to go to the folder that you need to copy and then share it from your laptop. We will see that now in a moment. And then go to your virtual machine and access this shared folder that you have shared on your host or on your laptop. Okay, we will see that now in a moment. Here I'm just taking okay, this is the guest services. It's already clicked, so I think I will pause it real quickly. Okay, I can just pause all of this real quickly. Here we can see that, just a minute. So here what I will do here, that I will go and create a folder in this virtual machine and share it, and as soon as I share it or make it as a shared folder, I can access it from my laptop, or from this is, as we said before, the virtual machine is called guest and the laptop or the physical machine is called host. So as soon as I share my folder on my virtual machine or on my guest operating system, I can access it from my host operating system. We will see that now in a moment. Here we will make it advanced sharing and tell him, okay, guest share and permissions. I will give it so this is not easy. Okay, so here I don't prefer, I give everyone full control. I don't prefer using the Hyper-V as my hypervisor, because this is done in VM Workstation Pro more easy than this way. Okay, so here also we'll go to the sharing and then to the security, and then we'll add everyone so I can access it easily. Okay, so this is a little bit of a problem, full control. So here I can access, now we can see after that I can see this share folder, this folder from my laptop. Okay, here we can see that. Now when I click start and run and then put my IP address of my virtual machine, here he will ask me for a username and a password to access the share on this virtual machine. So what I do, I just start, first of all I have a folder on my virtual machine, share it, okay, and then I go to my laptop or my host and then click right click and start right click and run, and then type the IP of my virtual machine, and then I will need a username and a password to access the shares on my virtual machine or my guests. Okay, here I will type my password. So here now I can access my guest share. Okay, just a minute here, I need to make sure when you type start, when you right click and then or start and then run, you need to put the IP of the server, or sorry, the IP of the virtual machine, and then D, which is the second volume on my virtual machine, and then the $sign. Okay, because this share is hidden. Okay, or you can only type, or for example you don't need to do the $sign, you just need to put the IP of the server and then in the run and then press enter. But as for more efficiency, you can type it in this way, 10.0.1.20/d $sign/ and then enter. After that he will ask you for a password to access this share, so you put your administrator password and then you can access the share. This is the only way that you can share things between your host and your guest, or between your laptop, your physical PC and your virtual machine. So here I will copy the scripts. So here I put it in my virtual machine. So now it will go and just a minute. So now I have already copied my everything. So remember, here is the folder that contains my script. So here is another thing. Remember, I told you in the scenario that I have a group of group policy templates, not only for Windows but for Firefox and for Google Chrome and for everything. I will copy these templates and put them in the group policy central location, so I can be able to control everything on the user's operating system. So I need to copy or to import this group policy templates that contains the Firefox and the Google Chrome. I will import this group policy templates to the group or to the location of the Windows group policies, which is now the each location now it's a centralized group policy location, which is in the sysvol, the one that we have created in a couple of seconds. We will copy them or we import them to the Active Directory group policy, to the Active Directory new group policy central location. We'll see that now in a moment. So we will copy it. Okay, just a minute. Here we will copy it. Okay, and then we will click run. Okay, and we will go to the sysvol. Here we can see that policies again, and here is the new location of the Windows group policy objects. So here we will double click on it, and then we will copy the templates or the group policy templates that contains the Google Chrome and a lot of things. We will copy it and then open this folder, which is the new Active Directory group policy central location, and paste it in this folder. So in this way we have imported the Firefox and Google Chrome group policies in it, or to be combined or to be added to the Windows group policy objects. Okay, I think we can pause it real quickly. Just a minute. So now it is pasted. We have pasted already the group policy templates. So now there is another thing. You remember when I was talking to you in the introduction, this is the script that will be implemented on every user that will access the domain. Okay, for the first time, for example, you have created an Active Directory user account. So once the user try to access the domain with his newly created Active Directory user, there is some things or some scripts to be implemented on him. We have discussed before what are these templates, or sorry, what are these scripts and what they will do. They will add the language, English and Arabic. They will change the time zone. They will do some performance setting to increase the performance of the Windows, a lot of things. All of this will be done when the user logs in to any machine with his Active Directory user account. And also this, in the Active Directory user setting, we will tell him or we will tell the in the Active Directory user setting, we will tell the Active Directory to go to this location, okay, to implement or to run this script. We will see that also. We don't hurry. When we create an Active Directory user account, I will show you in the Active Directory user setting, we will tell him this user, please go to this location to get the script to implement it on the user when he logs in. Okay, we will see that in a moment. So we will copy this script. As I said before, the scripts that will run in the Active Directory will be in the location of sysvol. Okay, it will be in sysvol also. I will show you where is this location. It will be sysvol scripts. Okay, Remember that the sysvol folder contains two things: the Active Directory new central group policy location and the scripts that will be implemented on all of the Active Directory user accounts. So here we can see that sysvol and then scripts. We will put here the mycomputer.bat. This is the script that will be implemented on every Active Directory user account. So when we create an Active Directory user account, we'll tell him, please go to this location and implement this script. When every time I create in any Active Directory user account, there is a place for the script location. Okay, so I tell him, please, this user, I will attach a certain script to this user, please implement it when he logs in. Where this location of this script, it will be in the sysvol, this location. Here we can open, these are the location. Here is the server. Remember, we need to have, just a moment, this script will go and run certain files, okay, in a certain location. So we need to have on our server a folder named backgrounds, and we will have some files in this folder, and we need to share this folder. Okay, for example, the script, as I said before, it will be implemented on every user that logs into the domain. So this script will run certain files, so these files should be in a folder, and this folder is shared. Okay, so every user, when he accesses the domain controller, accesses the domain, he can go to this share folder and implement the script. So you need to give every user in the Active Directory certain rights to this folder, so he can go and implement the script, because the script will not run by itself. It will run some files in a certain folder. This folder, you should put some rights on it for every user in the domain. He can be able to access it. Okay, we can give him read only. This will be enough. You don't have to give him more privileges. Okay, we will see that now when we go further. I will show you how this is done, but just take this as a note. So here we can see that here is the backgrounds, here is the folder that we will share. Okay, he will share this folder, and here is our, just a minute, if you remember the script mycomputer.bat, it will run some files. Here are the files. One of them is the language reg file, and one is the search hide reg file, and one of them is the time zone reg file. So we need to share this folder and give the users in the Active Directory some privileges on this folder. For example, read. So when the user logs into the domain, the script he will use, the user will use the script. Okay, and the script will go and implement these registry keys. So the user should have some privileges on this background folder, so it can be able to run the script. Because the script itself, there is no problem for the user to run the script, but the problem is for these files, for this registry keys, and these registry keys are in a location or in a folder. You should give the user, Active Directory user, some rights on it, so he can be able to implement the script. Here we remember something like, just a minute, okay, let's go here. Okay, one of the, let's return back. One of the things also here, that there is a program in the script, there is a line that says use this program to log off. This is a program that will log off the machine after a certain amount of time. So in the script I am telling him to use this file to log the user after 3000 seconds from inactivity. For example, if the user have left the PC not working for or not working on the PC for 3000 seconds, it will log off the machine. So I am telling the script, please, to implement, if the user didn't use the machine for 300 seconds, please use the idle log off exe file or this program to log off the user. Okay, where is the location of this exe file? It will be in the C idle log off folder and then this program. So when the script will use the program, it should be in this location. I can show you all. If you can go, this is 29 minutes, we can go a little bit further. Here we can see that this is the location. All of these files are in the backgrounds folder that we were looking in for a couple of seconds, and then we will make a new in the C. We will make a folder name idle log off, and then idle log off, the program that we have been looking for in a couple of seconds, and then we will tell him to in a 3000 seconds to log off the machine. So we need to make this destination and put the idle log off folder in it, and we need to share this folder and give the users of the Active Directory some rights on it so they can be able to implement the script. Okay, so we can go a little bit further. Okay, we can now copy. Now we will share the folder of backgrounds. Okay, as we see here, can I just go a little bit further? We can go to, just for a second, no, I need to get to the script. Just a minute. No, just a minute. Okay, we can see here that we need to share. This is a share folder. Okay, so we need to share this folder. It's in the server and we need to make it as a share folder. So we need to share the backgrounds. Okay, and give it some rights and give the users of the Active Directory some rights on this folder. Okay, so this is the name of the server and the name of the share. Okay, so this is not the name of the folder, this is the name of the share folder. So we need this folder to be shared and the users to have some rights on it, the Active Directory to have some users on it so they can be able to run the script. Okay, so here we can get it a little bit further. Okay, so we can go there again. Okay, here I have the backgrounds. Okay, and then we will share it. I think I have passed some time with this. Oh, it's 1 hour. Okay, I think we can stop here for now. We can go a little bit back. I think I have passed it to this. Okay, we can stop here. It is the minute of 30 minutes. Okay, so I will make it in another part. So until I see you all the next video, hope this video was informative for you all. I would like you all to thank you for viewing, because the video is a little bit very long, so I prefer it to be only 1 hour and 22 minutes. So let's remember that we have here stopped at the backgrounds folder. This is the folder that will contain all of our registry keys and scripts. This will be implemented on the user the next time he or the first time he logs into the domain. So thank you so much. This is the minute of 30:25. Thank you.